So you're trying to do everything right. You're buying the low-fat stuff, you're drinking fruit juice, snacking on granola, but for some reason, you're still feeling exhausted, kind of bloated, maybe even gaining a little weight. And you know what? It's incredibly frustrating.
But what if the problem isn't you? What if the problem is the food itself? In this explainer, we're going to pull back the curtain on how some of the most common health foods are actually the real culprits behind chronic inflammation and those wild blood sugar spikes.
Exactly. I mean, this quote just hits you, right? It's that terrifying moment of realization that so many people have. The very foods that are marketed to us with words like natural and wholesome are often the ones doing the most damage. Okay, let's get into this. We're going to start with the meal that really sets the tone for your entire day, breakfast. This is where some of the sneakiest saboteurs hide out, pretending to be a healthy start, but they're really just a hidden sugar bomb.
And this one hurts a little, because a lot of us grew up with it, right? A big glass of orange juice just feels like the absolute peak of a healthy morning.
But here's where that sunny picture gets a little cloudy. Just look at the hard data. When you break it down, ounce for ounce, that glass of OJ has almost as much sugar as a glass of soda. I mean, look at those bars. And why? It's because the juicing process strips out all the natural fiber.
And that fiber, it's absolutely critical. You can think of it like your body's built-in braking system for sugar. When you eat a whole orange, that fiber makes sure the sugar gets absorbed slowly, giving you nice, steady energy. But without it, you're basically just drinking liquid sugar that hits your system like a freight train.
Okay, so what about flavored yogurt? You know, it's packed with probiotics, it's got cute little pictures of fruit on the label. It's got to be good for you, right? You would think so. But this, right here, shows you the problem perfectly. Your average fruit-on-the-bottom yogurt has more sugar than a Snickers bar. And the cruel irony? All that sugar actually feeds the bad bacteria in your gut, pretty much canceling out any benefit from the probiotics. And our last breakfast betrayer? Granola. The trick here is all about the serving size. If you look at the label, a serving is about 1/4 of a cup, which is basically the size of a golf ball. But come on, who eats that little? Most of us pour it like cereal, which means we're easily downing 40 to 50 grams of sugar before the day is even properly started.
So the good news is the fix is actually really simple. It's all about making a few smart swaps. Instead of juice, just eat the orange. And instead of that sugary flavored yogurt, go for plain full-fat Greek yogurt and just toss in your own berries. And for granola, swap it for some steel-cut oats with a handful of nuts.
All right, so we've survived breakfast. Now let's venture into that so-called healthy aisle. This is where things get really deceptive, because these foods rely almost entirely on clever marketing to seem way better than they actually are.
Oh yeah, take veggie chips. The bag is green, it has beautiful pictures of kale and carrots, but they're basically a scam. Most of them are just potato or cornstarch with a tiny little sprinkle of vegetable powder to give a color. Nutritionally, they're almost identical to regular potato chips. And you see the same playbook with sports drinks. They're sold to us as the key to athletic performance, but for the average person, they're just liquid candy. A single bottle can have more sugar than your entire recommended daily limit. It's completely unnecessary unless you literally just ran a marathon.
And then you have the plant-based boom. Now let's be super clear. Eating whole plants is one of the best things you can do. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about these ultra-processed products, like the frozen burgers and sausages. Just look at an ingredient list. You'll see like 25 to 35 ingredients with things you can't even pronounce, like methyl cellulose and modified food starch. In fact, a study in the British Medical Journal linked these kinds of ultra-processed foods, plant-based or not, to higher rates of disease.
So, what should plant-based actually look like? Well, it looks like this. Simple whole foods. Things like lentil soup, black bean tacos, or a tofu stir-fry. This stuff is genuinely healthy, unlike its factory-made cousins hiding out in the frozen aisle.
Okay, this brings us to our final and maybe the biggest health saboteur of them all. This is the myth that has completely dominated nutrition for the last 50 years, the idea that dietary fat is the enemy.
This whole thing kicked off back in the 70s, and it was fueled by research that we now know was actually funded by the sugar industry to shift all the blame for heart disease onto fat. And it worked. The result was this explosion of low-fat and fat-free products. But here's the thing. As fat got taken out of our food, sugar consumption went through the roof, and so did obesity and diabetes.
And this is exactly why. Fat gives food its flavor, its texture, its whole personality. So when you take it out, food becomes bland and, well, tastes like cardboard. Food companies knew this, of course, so they replaced the fat with something cheaper and way more addictive: sugar, high fructose corn syrup, and a bunch of artificial flavors.
You know, the cruelest part of this whole lie is that our bodies need healthy fat to function. As you can see here, vitamins A, D, E, and K are fat-soluble. That's a sciencey way of saying your body literally can't absorb them without fat. So that fat-free salad dressing you're pouring all over your beautiful vitamin-rich salad, it's actually preventing you from getting the very nutrients you're trying to eat in the first place. It's wild.
Okay, so let's land this plane. We've deconstructed all the myths, we've torn everything down, so now let's build a simple, actionable playbook that you can actually take with you to the grocery store.
It really just boils down to these simple swaps. Instead of fruit juice, eat the whole fruit. Swap those veggie chips for actual carrots and hummus. And instead of those super sugary sports drinks, try water with just a pinch of salt and a squeeze of lemon. And please stop being afraid of fat. Choose real foods with healthy fats like avocado and olive oil instead of those low-fat products that are almost always loaded with sugar.
You know, when you zoom out, you can really see the food industry's playbook. All 7 of these foods have the exact same thing in common. A natural essential element, like fiber or fat, is stripped out, and it's replaced with something cheaper, more shelf-stable, and way more addictive. And that's almost always sugar and highly processed oils.
So, here's the final thought we want to leave you with. The more a food has to scream on its packaging about how healthy it is, the more suspicious you should probably be. An apple doesn't have a marketing team. A head of broccoli doesn't need a flashy label. So the real question is, when you're shopping, are you listening to the marketing or are you listening to your body?